how Joplin School District CARES Act funds will provide new Chromebooks for a school that's not in the district. Plus, why the state of Missouri is making it easier for substitute teachers to get certified, and a look at the impact social media is having on the election.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, we'll have the story of a local boxer fighting her way to the top of the national rankings. And a recent Harvard poll shows a large number of first-time voters plan to vote in the 2020 election. For something to talk about this morning, we're asking, what was the first presidential election you voted in? And did your candidate win? You can also vote in our Insta poll. Just visit KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. But first, a check on your forecast.
All right, similar to yesterday, we're starting off quiet, but it's all eyes down south, not southwest, but down south. Here's what's headed our way. It is going to be a wet Wednesday. Now, the thaw is on, but before we get there, I do want to point out we've got flood watches for counties indicated in turquoise. Now, as you move off to the west, those are going to be your winter weather advisories, your ice storm warnings, your winter weather warnings, etc. But you can tell at least ours is going to say rain. We just got to worry about flooding now. Freeman Health System Sky Camera in Joplin, 38 degrees. So like I said, the thaw is on as we manage to stay above the freezing point, if not right at it. Iola, our one city, chiming in at 32, everybody else 33 and above. So as we progress through our Wednesday, we are actually going to be able to make it into the 40s. Here's the important part of it, and you'll notice every panel on there just about has rain on it. So look at what happens here on Future Track. Probably about right as you get to work, if you're working at 8 to 5, if you work a little later, you're going to run into it all, and it's going to stick around by the time you get ready to go home. There we go for the evening right there. And look at this. It's almost like it stops at Kansas City and splits, but it's going to roll right through us. And that's why that flood watch is so important today, because we're going to get easily over an inch of rain before we dissipate there on Thursday. Now, our temperatures are going to warm up a little bit as we head into the weekend. Still looking at a nice Halloween. No worries for the kiddos. Don't forget, we're going to take the clocks back there on Sunday as well. Tanya, I know the thaw is on because before the show, I always like to go out, kind of see what a cloud cover looks like, see what stars we can pick up, etc. The ice is dropping from the tower.
Yes.
So I may have been out checking out the cloud cover when all of a sudden I went, no, Michael.
Yeah, you got to be careful out there. It's not a day to hang outside the TV station,
no,
that's for sure.
I wasn't thinking about the ice that had accumulated on the tower and the fact that, you know, sitting at 38 here at the station, that it was going to start dropping until it started dropping right by me. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I actually act like I was about 19, 20 years old right there. Mm-hmm. Was the way I sprinted inside.
First time you sprinted like that when it wasn't on the diamond, huh? No, remember, that's why I hit dingers. I like to jog 360 feet. There you go.
I don't like to run it.
That's funny. Just be safe out there. All right, thanks, Michael. Well, Joplin School Board met last night to discuss a number of things, including purchasing 80 Chromebooks using CARES money. But those Chromebooks are not for the Joplin district itself. They're for College Heights Christian School, and that's because of a requirement involving federal regulations to provide services to students and teachers in non-public schools. Joplin School District serves as the primary point for funding, and then the district must provide a certain percentage to the private schools in the district's limits.
There are federal grants that we get every year, and off the top of that, the non-publics get their proportionate share through services or supplies or goods.
Officials say there are stipulations for the funding, especially if it goes to a religious school. In some cases, whatever is being provided through Joplin must be in a room that has no religious icons or decor of any kind. Missouri is trying to increase the number of substitute teachers by making it easier for them to get certified. In August, the state lowered the requirement so that residents with a high school diploma can get certified after going through a 20-hour course. The state is also using CARES Act funds to reimburse the cost of the course, certification, and background check. The Joplin Health Department reports its 36th COVID-19 related death, and this time it was a 92-year-old woman who was a resident in a Joplin long-term care facility. The Jasper County Health Department is reporting 3 more deaths. These patients were all women, one in her 50s, one in her 60s, and one in her 80s. They bring the total COVID-19 deaths in the county to 53. Election Day is 1 week away, and this year social media has played a major role in campaigning in the effort to influence people to vote. KOAM's Caitlin Shives spoke with our local Southwest Missouri Democrats and Republican groups to find out more.
Social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok have allowed those running for office to more conveniently reach a larger audience this year. President Trump tweets to his 87 million followers more than 20 times a day, and Facebook has released posts reminding people to register to vote.
Social media does overall influence people a lot because that's where a lot of people see things the first time.
Locally, social media has helped the Southwest Missouri Republicans and Democrats with campaigning.
It's made things a lot easier for us to be able to reach people sometimes without spending a lot of money.
We've always used social media heavily in campaigns. I would say since 2008, social media has been used heavily.
Allowing each side to voice their views and opinions to others.
I would say that there are a couple of issues that are playing very heavily on social media and where some people may have been swayed. No on Amendment 3 is the one where I would say I've seen the most probably social media convincing of folks.
I was explaining Amendment 3 to somebody on Facebook the other day in a conversation, and partway through the conversation they said, "You've changed my mind."
Krista Stark with the Southwest Missouri Democrats says social media is used more for reminding people, especially the younger generation, to vote rather than swaying who they vote for.
Zoomers are not a highly persuadable group. They already have their mind made up one way or another. Just reminding them to vote would be the issue.
For MSSU student Connor Henry, being exposed to multiple campaign ads did influence him in some ways.
I was surprised by the amount of campaign ads on Instagram, to where, while it never changed my mind, it made me think about some topics in new ways.
And it has senior RJ Smith wanting to vote.
Instagram, Twitter, really anything that has like something about voting or register to vote here or something about the election. So, it's kind of making me want to vote.
In Joplin, Caitlin Shive, KOAM News.
You can find more on this story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Authorities in Jasper County declare a mistrial in the case of a Joplin man charged with multiple child sex crimes because the suspect is sick. The trial of Daniel Franklin was supposed to start Monday, but Franklin became sick and was taken to the hospital. His charges include multiple counts of statutory sodomy, statutory rape, and unlawful use of a weapon. His trial has been rescheduled for later this year. It's 5:07.
Coming up from the south is we've got flood watches for Northeast Oklahoma, southern Southeast County, and southern Southeast Kansas, and southern Southwest Missouri, and it's just going to roll through all day long. We got about 2 hours before it actually starts here in earnest. The nice thing is our temperatures are above freezing and stay above freezing. No worry about wintry weather today.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, getting first-time voters to the polls.
Young people get a bad rap when it comes to showing up to vote, but some believe they could have a big impact in the 2020 race. I'm Michael George with the issues driving young voters to the polls.
Plus, the LA Dodgers are officially world champs. Why it's been a long time coming for the team. And how a scientific discovery could lead to breakthroughs in treating diseases like ALS and multiple sclerosis. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Dave Roberts. And strike three. Dodgers have won it all in 2020.
After 32 years, the Los Angeles Dodgers world champions once again. Dodgers defeating the Tampa Bay Rays 3-1, winning Game 6 of the World, 3-1 in Game 6 of the World Series. Dodgers appeared in 3 World Series in the last 4 years, but you got to go back to the iconic Kirk Gibson year of 1988. It's the last time they won the entire thing. You know, people in East LA celebrating, thousands taking to the streets to celebrate that big win. It's been a few good weeks for LA sports fans. Remember, we're fresh off the Los Angeles Lakers winning the NBA championship for the first time in 10 years. It's good stuff right there. I feel bad for you, Blake Snell. I feel bad for you, my man. Joplin High School's football game against Rockhurst, scheduled for Friday, it has been canceled. It's due to what Joplin school officials are calling reasons related to COVID-19. That's an exact quote. Quote, reasons related to COVID-19, end quote. Rockhurst forfeits, and Joplin will play the winner of the Raymore Peculiar Lee's Summit game. So unfortunate that it had to happen, but yeah, take the playoff game and chalk up a win. A local boxer's made it to the top 5 in the national rankings and has her, that's right, her, sights set on continuing to climb all the way to the top. Sports director Jacob Leonard caught up with $1 million Maddie Bolin as she prepares for her next fight.
Maddie Bolin is soft-spoken, so she lets her hands do the talking.
I just know I have to go in there and be aggressive, and I can block everybody out when I'm in there.
Everybody's got a different outlook of things when they get in the ring. They know they're in there you got combat in front of them. You got to go to work.
Bolin, who fights out of Heartland Boxing Gym in Galena, has made her way up to number 4 in the USA Boxing National Rankings, but she's not done climbing.
I just love it. I just want to go as far as I can with it and get at least 200 fights, shoot for the Olympics, win all the national titles, win everything I can with it.
Bolin will be in the ring this weekend at the KC Golden Gloves Regional Tournament, an event she has won the last 2 years.
I'm feeling confident, but I don't take anyone lightly.
Real aggressive fighter. She got good speed, good power. Kind of we've been working a little bit on the Tyson style, moving the head a little bit more and coming in.
Bolin hopes this weekend is another step on her way to the top. She credits her trainer and her gym for the opportunity to get there.
I wouldn't be where I am without the gym or Dallas. Dallas is the best coach out there.
She loves the boxing and stuff, and anything you love, you're going to put more into it, put your heart into it, and more drive towards it. That's what she kind of lives for right now.
In Galena, Jacob Leonard, KOAM Sports.
Bolin played collegiate soccer at NEO before beginning her boxing career, and after this weekend, she prepares for the USA Nationals that's held in Louisiana in December. 4 members of the Axe Throwing League at Main Street Axe Company in Pittsburgh qualify for the National Championship in December. Last night, they competed in their weekly league matches, so we sent our own Daniel Camp out there to scope out the competitors.
Being in a small market, it makes me very proud of what we're doing here. Being in business for 2 years now, and to have axe throwers developed to compete on the national level and international level speaks volumes of the competitors that we have here in Southeast Kansas.
Kind of cool to be able to go to places like that and just represent Southeast Kansas, our area, and I kind of think it's an awesome deal.
I don't think it's going to hit us until we get there and we're with the best, and then to know that we're with the best, and we're able to compete with the best axe throwers.
It hasn't really hit us all the way yet. I guess when we're there and we walk into the place, it's going to be a different story. But I mean, I'm a little nervous thinking about it now.
I just think it's a cool opportunity to go check it out. Get to go throw with some of these guys that have been doing it since the league and everything got started. So
at the end of the day, it's just having a good time, competing, and having fun.
We wish Benjamin, Mac, and Jesse the best of luck in that World Championship. Still to come on the KOAM Morning News, the latest on the aftermath of Hurricane Zeta after it makes landfall on the Yucatan Peninsula and now heads toward Louisiana. And a check on our 7-day forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns. It's going to be all eyes to the south today on the Skywatch storm tracker. Now, we're going to get a ton of rain. It just it's going to take about 2 hours to get here. A nice thing is, from the Freeman Health System sky camera, we are well above the freezing point. That's the key factor for today. Now, even with that being said, we do have multiple flood watches in effect. We're easily going to pick up more than an inch of rain. Cool temperatures as we head into the weekend as well. Now, this morning we're talking about the election. 6 days away. Polls show young people more motivated than ever to vote. Michael George spoke with some first-time voters about how they can play a key role in the outcome of the race.
19-year-old Imani Bennett just cast her ballot for the first time.
I'm voting. I'm really making a difference. Like, my voice will be heard.
The sophomore at Spelman College says she sees too many important issues to sit on the sidelines.
Democracy protection, voting rights, healthcare is also important because I'm almost like an adult in the workforce.
19-year-old Olivia Siebert in Madison, Wisconsin considers voting a responsibility.
My parents raised me that voting is important, and I personally believe that voting is a really important way to exercise your rights within our democracy.
Only 46% of young people voted in the last presidential election, far lower than any other age group. But this year, a Harvard poll found 63% of young people say they will definitely be voting. Elisa Canty does outreach to first-time voters for the nonpartisan group Common Cause.
They're definitely activated. They definitely enjoy voting early or either voting by mail. So I think we will definitely see decent turnout, but it may not just be on election day.
Young people are choosing between the two oldest candidates to ever lead the Democratic and Republican tickets. Imani and Olivia both expressed that the youth vote seems overlooked.
Politicians are telling us what our needs are, and they aren't listening to what we say our needs are.
I think that dismissing young people is a big mistake. I think that we have a lot to offer. It will be our turn in our country soon enough.
A new generation of first-time voters hoping their turnout numbers this election will make history. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Our question this morning, what was the first presidential election you voted in? Let us know when it was and if your candidate won on the KOAM News Now Facebook page and on our Insta poll, KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Healthwatch next.
Topping Healthwatch this morning, researchers are hoping a new cell discovery will lead to strides when it comes to future treatments for degenerative neurological diseases like ALS, multiple sclerosis, and more. Mandy Gaither has the latest on a new study.
If this translates to the clinic and it actually is successful, it'll be, a game changer.
For more than 30 years as a neurologist, Dr. Benjamin Segal has watched patients slowly succumb to diseases like multiple sclerosis. But now he and a team at Ohio State University's Wexner Medical Center say they've discovered a new type of immune cell tested in mice that they hope will lead to new treatments, not only for those with degenerative neurological diseases, but also people suffering from brain or spinal cord damage and even stroke.
What we're all pursuing is better ways to make our patients function better and to reclaim lost skills and abilities.
Dr. Segal says the cell tested in mice can save dying nerve cells and stimulate regrowth when nerve fibers are damaged. He says they've also identified an immune cell line in humans with similar characteristics that promotes nervous system repair. The next step is to harness this cell in the lab. Researchers are hoping to one day be able to inject the cells into patients.
There's a really tremendous potential with this new approach.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
It was published in the latest edition of Nature Immunology. A new study shows more than 80% of coronavirus patients hospitalized in Spain have vitamin D deficiency. Men have lower levels than women. Vitamin D benefits the immune system, and doctors say a deficiency should be identified and treated, especially in the key target population for COVID, like the elderly and people with underlying conditions. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
Wednesday, rain hasn't materialized as of yet, but it is here in the next couple hours. Going to be perfect timing as we all get ready to head out the door, not only to work, but also school, which is why we have flood watches abound. Positive aspect of it all is don't have to worry about that freezing mark. We're finally going to be able to creep into the high 30s and 40s, and we'll keep our rain simply as rain. All the latest on the Skywatch weather app.
Now, Joplin School District CARES Act funds will provide new Chromebooks for a school that's not in the district. Plus, why the state of Missouri is making it easier for substitute teachers to get certified, and a look at the impact social media is having on the election.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5:30. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, something to talk about this morning is about the first time you voted for president. Let us know when your first election was and if your candidate won. Also, we invite you to participate in our Insta poll. Just visit KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. But first, a check on your forecast.
And it's all eyes down to the south. I'm doing the mental math here really fast. Would it have been 92? Is that right?
I feel really old because I can't remember.
No. I'm talking about the last time it was on November 3rd.
Well, that gets really specific.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a date that I remember. Kind of a date my mom likes to remind me of. Skywatch Storm Tracker, it is all eyes down to the south. There's a little lightning strike right there, picked up along the leading edge of that band of rain that's headed our way. So everything today is not going to go southwest northeast. It's going to go from due south to the north. And so this is what we're anticipating. And it's going to be pretty heavy once it begins. We got a couple hours before it starts. But I'm telling you, if it's not raining when you do leave the house, take the umbrella with you. That's why we got flood watches abound. We got this Freeman Health System sky cam, a little light mist coming down. 38 degrees is where we stand. That's the positive part of all of it, is that we are going to be well above the freezing mark by the time the rain gets here. So no wintry mix, just going to be a whole lot of rain. We're going to cruise past an inch today.
I can't say what year I voted in first because then that would give away.
No. I was just talking about November 3rd. That's all I was doing.
Okay.
I think it was 92.
I'm trying to remember.
I'm going to have to go back and find the calendar now.
There was a student
I actually
election.
think that in my lifetime we've had more November 8th elections, which is the latest day you can vote, Monday, Tuesday after the first Monday.
Yep.
So you can't go any later than the 8th. I think we've had more November 8th than we have had November 3rds.
I think so. I think you're right.
Because I know we've had 2 8ths.
Interesting to go back and check.
And I know we've had 1 second, or second obviously being the earliest, Tuesday after Monday.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry, that's Hayslip's brain at work in the morning. This is what I do.
We could go back calendar and just check where it is.
I would. I'm going to find a list.
There you go.
We'll find a list.
All right, thanks, Michael. A Leavenworth, Kansas man is accused of killing his 2 sons and taking off with his 2 young daughters. Bianca Beltran reports on how the girls were rescued safely.
Toys lay frozen in time outside of Donald Jackson Jr.'s home. 48 hours earlier, investigators combed the property for clues in the death of his 12 and 14-year-old sons. A family member found them dead Saturday after one of them did not show up for a soccer game. They were 7th and 8th grade students at Lansing Middle School. Superintendent Dan Wessel said the district is offering grief counseling for their classmates.
That was a big part that we talked about today with our staff, is to look for those changes in behavior. Talking about death is something that is very difficult. The main thing is learn to listen.
Jackson was arrested in Oklahoma near the Texas border Saturday evening. Several tips resulted from the Amber Alert for his daughters, 3-year-old Avon and 7-year-old Nora. Jonathan Burrow was in the right place when Jackson drove by.
Right when I left the median, it just so happened that the truck driver had called in and said that he was behind the car and that it was the car we were looking for.
Normally, he checks semis for permits to enter Oklahoma. On this night, he pulled over Jackson and got him on the ground until sheriff's deputies arrived. Burrows says he's grateful he could help find the girls safe.
I tell everyone that talked to me that I said the two little girls had a guardian angel watching over them that night.
Jackson remains in prison in Oklahoma awaiting extradition to Kansas, where felony murder charges are in the works. First responders worked a crash on Highway 26 about 3 miles south of Galena, Kansas. A law officer on the scene says the van and truck hit head on and that 4 people were taken to the hospital. He says there were no fatalities at the scene. Firefighters responded because of initial reports of a fire, but apparently there was no fire. Joplin School Board met last night to discuss a number of things, including purchasing 80 Chromebooks using CARES money. But those Chromebooks are not for the Joplin district itself. They're for College Heights Christian School. That's because of a requirement involving federal regulations to provide services to students and teachers in non-public schools. The Joplin School District serves as the primary point for funding, and then the district must provide a certain percentage to the private schools in the district's limits. Missouri is trying to increase the number of substitute teachers by making it easier for them to get certified. In August, the state lowered the requirement so that residents with a high school diploma can get certified after going through a 20-hour course. The state's also using CARES Act funds to reimburse the cost of the course, certification, and background check.
My hope is that it will have a positive effect. The reality is I think it's just going to be marginal. I don't know that we're going to have a considerable amount of people changing their minds from, hey, this is what I am doing, and now I'm going to do something different.
The Joplin School District has been doing something similar and has seen a positive effect. The program ends November 4th. Oklahoma is getting a massive shipment of coronavirus tests. Federal officials say they plan to ship nearly 1.2 million rapid tests to the Sooner State. The tests, developed by Abbott, give results as quickly as 15 minutes. Governor Stitt will decide how to distribute those tests to schools, nursing homes, critical infrastructure, and first responders. Election Day is a week away, and this year social media has played a major role in campaigning and the effort to influence people to vote. Social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram have allowed those running for office to more conveniently reach a larger audience. For instance, President Trump tweets to his 87 million followers more than 20 times a day. Local social media has helped organizations like the Southwest Missouri Republicans and Democrats with campaigning. It's allowed them to spend less on advertising and campaign safely during COVID-19. Krista Stark with the Southwest Missouri Democrats says social media is used more for reminding people, especially the younger generation, to vote rather than swaying who they vote for.
Zoomers are not a highly persuadable group. They already have their mind made up one way or another. Just reminding them to vote would be the issue.
You can find more on this story on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. That's a look at our top news stories. Coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News, we're going to tell you what laws in your state say about casting your ballot during work hours. Plus how a group of scientists are using robot dogs to sniff out radiation in Chernobyl. But first, it's 5:37.
It's going to be a rainy Wednesday. Nice thing is, don't have to worry about wintry precip. It's just going to be rain, but it's going to rain all day long. Flood watches in effect. Tanya, I did a little mental math. The elections that have taken place on November 3rd specifically, I'm going to invoke the names of Lyndon Baines Johnson, Barry Goldwater, Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden. 1964, 1992, 2020. Be back with World Watch right after this.
Topping World Watch, Hurricane Zeta made landfall on the Yucatan Peninsula yesterday. The storm came ashore with winds of nearly 81 miles per hour. The Category 1 hurricane brought heavy rains and storm surge to the area. Zeta could make landfall again on the U.S. Gulf Coast later today. Anti-lockdown protests consume parts of Italy. Demonstrators say they're fed up with the government's new measures to curb coronavirus infections there. Late Monday, protests over a new round of coronavirus restrictions turned violent. In Turin, police say dozens of people were injured. Protesters looted luxury stores and set fire to garbage bins. Well, dozens of workers are putting the finishing touches on the roads and signs in the historic sanctuary of Machu Picchu, known as the Lost City of the Incas. The archaeological park is located on the eastern slopes of the Andes Mountains in Peru. It will reopen on Sunday after being closed for 7 months due to the coronavirus pandemic. When it reopens, only 675 people per day will be permitted in. It's a much lower number than the more than 200,000 people who used to be received every day. Visitors will have their temperature taken and will be required to comply with social distancing measures. Four-legged robotic dog sniffs out radiation at the site of the world's most nuclear accident. The Boston Dynamics robot dog, known as Spot, made his rounds at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Footage released by the power plant shows the robot dog walking around the plant that's under a massive confinement shelter. Scientists from the University of Bristol say the test will help the team progress in designing more robots for nuclear industry purposes.
The opportunity to deploy here within the old power plant, it was a very exciting opportunity for us, and an ability for us to demonstrate to your personnel what we can do and how we might be able to help.
The 1986 accident caused by a botched safety test in then Soviet Ukraine killed dozens of people within weeks and forced tens of thousands of people to flee the area. Israeli supporters of President Donald Trump roll through Jerusalem. The convoy of vehicles carried both Israeli and U.S. flags, honking their horns as they arrived in Jerusalem on Tuesday. Supporters waved flags bearing the words, "Trump 2020, keep America great again." Participants say they're thankful for what he has done for the Jewish people.
More and more people are awakening and seeing who Donald Trump truly is, that he's for the people and for the Jewish people. I mean, he's for every people, but what he's done for the Jewish people, there are no words to explain. He's exceptional president.
The Trump administration recently brokered deals between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Sudan. That's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. Let's toss it over to Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Thank you, Tanya. This morning on the KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta poll, it's about Election Day, 6 days away. So we've finding out that young people, there's a survey out about young people being able to vote and wanting to vote more than ever. We're asking, what was the first presidential election you voted in? Michelle Pacini says, there hasn't been anyone she ever agreed with 100%. People say I should vote for the lesser of two evils. Michelle says, I disagree because I usually have at least one thing from both sides I strongly believe in, like women's choices for their own body and gun rights, and I will be forced to choose. Morning, Mama, love you. Morning, KOAM. Morning, Michelle. I'm going to come back to you, Guy. Hold on. Becky Mingarelli, she says, that was too long ago. Had to check Wikipedia on that one. It was Clinton versus Bush. I'm sure I probably voted for Bush, Becky says. And interestingly enough, we were just talking about, that was the last time we had a November 3rd election. That was 1992. Guy Hansen, how in the H I got from McGovern to Trump is a tale of too many parties. Now, Guy, you were so engaging with us each and every morning. It's a story I would actually love to know. If you go back to Nixon versus McGovern in 1972, of course, President Nixon won in a landslide right there over McGovern. But also, too, we were talking about young people voting. Let's not forget that 1972 was the one that opened up, well, it was the first one since the 26th Amendment, which lowered that voting age. So I find that really interesting, Guy. Also, too, of note, don't hold me to this. I'm going to have to look this up. I think that's when Joe Biden was elected to Congress. It was in 1972. The KOAM News Now Insta poll for this morning, asking the first presidential election you voted in. This is pretty interesting because our Facebook numbers they don't match these, and that's why I find this really cool. 2008 to 2016, 8, 12, and 16, 34% of you. That was the first one you voted in. 92, 88, 84, working backwards, 30% of you. The Facebook is being dominated by really that 72, 76, 80 era, but only 8% on the Insta poll. I'm really doing a little demographic check here this morning. Go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote, KOAMnewsnow.com/vote, and we'll continue to roll your results. We'll be back right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Authorities in Jasper County declare a mistrial in the case of a Joplin man charged with multiple child sex crimes because the suspect is sick. The trial of Daniel Franklin was supposed to start Monday, but Franklin became sick and was taken to the hospital. His charges include multiple counts of statutory sodomy, statutory rape, and unlawful use of a weapon. His trial has been rescheduled for later this year. Joplin School Board met last night to discuss a number of things, including purchasing 80 Chromebooks using CARES money. But those Chromebooks are not for the Joplin district itself. They're for College Heights Christian School. That's because of a requirement involving federal regulations to provide services to students and teachers in non-public schools. Joplin School District serves as the primary point for funding, and then the district must provide a certain percentage to the private schools in the district's limits. Missouri is trying to increase the number of substitute teachers by making it easier for them to get certified. In August, the state lowered the requirement so that residents with a high school diploma can get certified after going through a 20-hour course. The state is also now using CARES Act funds to reimburse the cost of the course, certification, and background check. LA Dodgers won the World Series. They defeated the Tampa Bay Rays 3-1 in Game 6 of the World Series Tuesday night. The Dodgers appeared in 3 World Series in the last 4 years, but their last win was in 1988. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Skywatch storm tracker may be dry right now, maybe some light mist, but that is subject to change because everything's going to move in from the south today. It's going to be a rainy Wednesday. I guess the only positive is, hey, no worries about a wintry mix as we're up into the 40s. Be back right after this.
Some call it your civic duty, some call it your right as an American, but no matter what you choose to call it, voting is your way to have your voice heard. The only problem is sometimes you just don't have time to take to the world and wait in line to cast your ballot, or do you? Our own Jesse Irwin breaks down the laws in each of the 4 states intended to help you make it happen.
Certain laws allow you to take time out of your workday to hit the polls, but those laws differ from state to state. So we're here to help you put pen to paper and stake your claim to American democracy here in the 4-state area. First up, Arkansas. The Bear State has a law that requires employers to make a schedule that ensures you a chance to vote on Election Day, or they could face a fine. There's no allotted time they have to give you to vote, as long as they give you the time to get to the polls. Now, unfortunately, the state doesn't specify if you're leave of absence or not, so that's ultimately up to your employer, so be nice. Kansas is a little bit trickier. The Sunflower State allows you to leave work for up to 2 hours to vote, but only if there's absolutely no way that you can make it during your work hours. So if you go to work past 9 a.m. or you leave work before 5 p.m., then you have to vote on your own time, as long as you have 2 hours in your day where you're off the clock before the polls close. Employers are allowed to specify when you can go vote as long as it's not during your regular lunch period. Employees also get paid for the time that they spend voting, as long as that time doesn't exceed 2 hours. In Missouri, you have up to 3 hours of paid time to vote as long as your employer is given prior notice. Like Kansas, you're only given the opportunity to vote while at work as long as you don't have 3 free hours in your day when you're off the clock to vote. Also like Kansas, your employer can specify what time you can go vote. Finally, Oklahoma requires employers to give you 2 hours of paid leave time to vote. Like Missouri, you can only vote while at work if you don't start or end your workday 3 hours before the polls close. Employers can also designate the hours that you're allowed to vote. Well, now that you're armed with the knowledge, get out to the polls on November 3rd and make your voice heard. Make sure your voice is heard.
Thank you, Jesse. That was very informative. And we've got all of them listed on our morning show page at KOAMnewsnow.com. And because Election Day is not a national holiday that we can take off work for, it takes some coordination if you're an American working on November 3rd and if you plan on voting in person.
All right, Tanya, it just so happens that voting, not surprisingly so, because our incomparable producer, Caden Milner, does such a good job of transitioning in between stories and putting me on the spot and making me read the answers to this. Asking, what was the first presidential election you voted in and did your candidate win? John Tribbian says, 1976. I was an independent and the vote for Jimmy Carter. Now, I'm a straight Republican. I won't give up our country. Trump 2020, good morning, America. We say good morning, John. Kaylee Jo Johnson, her first was Bush versus Kerry in 2004. Dave Pitts, this is good. 1976, the candidates Ford versus Carter. The pandemic, H1N1. I voted for Ford, hit a parked car with my Chevy at the polling place, $35 damage. It wasn't a good year. No, that was good, Dave. That was good. Kenny Kimmel, also 1976, in the Navy, following the Nixon circus on the West Pacific coast. Watching Ford ascend to the president without ever being elected intrigued me. Unfortunately, I associated him with the whole mess, and I voted for Jimmy Carter. My candidate did win, but I always felt shortchanged by Ford. That was when I made my mind up to educate myself about the candidates before every election. Greatly appreciate the engagement this morning. Let's check the KOAM News Now Insta poll, where the majority of you right now, it's 84 through 92, with 27% of the vote followed. No, and 1980 through 72 through 80 now. But we've been back and forth, so I just want to thank everybody for voting. Keep the votes coming in. We're going to see we'll see what age group wins this thing. Go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Be back right after this. We're in store for a rainy Wednesday as everything is going to move down from the south to the north. There it is right there awaiting us. About to be in our counties here in the next hour. More KOAM Morning News right after this.
How Joplin School District CARES Act funds will provide new Chromebooks for a school that's not in the district. Plus, why the state of Missouri is making it easier for substitute teachers to get certified, and a look at the impact social media is having on the election.
The four states most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, we're going to lift the lid on our final Crocktober recipe of the season, and we'll be capping it off with crockpot cream cheese chicken chili, and it smells delicious. In other news, experts expect a higher turnout of first-time voters in this election compared to 2016. For our Something to Talk About, we want to know the first election you ever voted in. Be sure to chime in this morning's Insta poll. We've got several options for you to pick from at KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. First, a check on your forecast.
Several options. We go back to 1968. We gave you every option in the book. Thank you, incomparable producer Caden Milner. Skywatch Storm Tracker. Okay, so we're quiet now, but I tell you what, this is what's down to the south, and this is what's headed our way, and that is exactly why we've got flood watches all the way until Thursday evening. Now, on the positive side, it is going to stay as rain, as our temperatures in the high 30s right now. We're still hanging on to some 32s in Iola and Fort Scott, but got to remember, you're going to be the last ones to get any of that rain. Everybody down to the south already sitting mid-30s, and so that's why we don't have to worry about wintry precipitation, but we are easily going to cruise past an inch of accumulation. On the bus stop forecast, not much of a warm-up here. So once again, bundle them up, make sure they got an umbrella, because even if it's not raining when they go to school, it's probably going to be raining by the time they get home, because look at what this thing does. And once it begins, it just rolls right through us. It's interesting the pattern that it takes. It almost wants to stop right at Kansas City. But that means it rolls right through us. Just need to, we talked about the elevated areas for the past couple of days and the fact that they were going to ice over. Well, now we got to worry about the low-lying areas because those are certainly going to flood here by the time we get to tonight.
For sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a good old-fashioned soaker. A little limited thunder, lightning, not a whole lot. Nothing severe. Just got to stay on your toes as far as what you're looking at flood-wise.
Just be safe out there. Keep your eye on things.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll be done with it by Thursday afternoon.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Well, the Joplin School District approves buying 80 Chromebooks using CARES funding. However, the purchase is not for the district. KOAM's Chris Warner explains what school it is for and why the purchase must go through the Joplin School District.
College Heights Christian School is a private religious school in Joplin. It falls within the Joplin School District's attendance boundary, and it's the recipient of the 80 Chromebooks approved by the Joplin School Board. Joplin School's Executive Director of Student Services, Sandra Cantwell, says it's because the private schools, or non-public schools, don't receive the funding directly from the federal government.
There are federal grants that we get every year, and off the top of that, the non-publics get their proportionate share through services or supplies or goods.
Because the funding is handled by the public school, in this case Joplin schools, anything the non-public schools need has to go through Joplin.
So all orders go through the public school. They don't get any money. There's just a set aside for them, and then they send all of their orders to us, and we process them just like we would process an order for the district.
College Heights Superintendent Dan Decker says it's not unlike state money they get.
It's the same thing with title money, which is money to help students in the educational process. Joplin gets a certain amount, and then they have to divide that up, a certain amount up amongst the private schools within their attendance area.
Cantwell says only items over a certain amount have to go through the Joplin School Board for approval. Most requests for lower dollar items like hand sanitizer or cleaning supplies don't require board approval. Decker says there are still many people who are unaware of the required partnership.
I think so, because I think most people in the public realm, they just automatically assume that it's completely separate, and with many things it is, but with federal monies it's not.
In Joplin, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
Officials say there are stipulations for the funding, especially if it goes to a religious school. In some cases, whatever is being provided through Joplin must be in a room that has no religious icons or decor of any kind. Missourians working to become substitute teachers in the state can now get their certification free of charge. The state has started using CARES Act funds to reimburse the cost of certification, and that's because there's a nationwide substitute teacher shortage. Earlier this year, the state also lowered the requirements to become a substitute teacher so that residents with a high school diploma can get certified after taking a 20-hour course. Local districts hope it makes a difference because the pandemic has made it harder to get good subs.
On the number of people that probably would sub, people don't want to get out as much, especially they think that there might be considered more exposure because working in a building with kids.
The Joplin School District has been doing something similar and has seen a positive effect. The program ends November 4th. Election Day is a week away, and this year social media has played a major role in campaigning in the effort to influence people to vote. Social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram have allowed those running for office to more conveniently reach a larger audience. For instance, President Trump tweets to his 87 million followers more than 20 times a day. Locally, social media has helped organizations like the Southwest Missouri Republicans and Democrats with campaigning. It's allowed them to spend less on advertising and campaign safely during COVID-19. Party officials say social media is used more for reminding people, especially the younger generation, to vote rather than swaying who they vote for. A sheriff candidate is facing a battery charge and says he wants to share his side of the story. Authorities charged Kelly Stanley with domestic battery after an alleged incident involving another man who Stanley says is his business partner. The other man is charged with misdemeanor domestic battery. Stanley says he thinks the charge against him will be dismissed because the story police got from the alleged victim is not true.
It was reported that I tried to choke the person to a point where they couldn't breathe anymore, and that's a complete lie. There was actually no contact with the person. And that is actually on the paperwork that I turned over to the Sheriff's Department.
Stanley is running for Neosho County Sheriff against Under Sheriff Greg Taylor. Well, some people in the 4 states are mixing a history lesson into a spooky season. The Kingery House in Carthage was built in 1849. Over the years, it's had multiple uses, including a community sick house, Civil War field hospital, and as a private home. Officials say because of that history, the house is a hotbed for paranormal activity.
We have captured shadow men on camera.
We've captured floating balls of light on camera. There are a number of things that people experience. Really interesting.
The house now stands as a living museum with tours available. I'll have to go check that out. 6:07.
All right, we're looking down to the south. It's creeping closer and closer to us right now. About to make its way into northeast Oklahoma first, and then the rain is not going to stop today. It's going to be an all Wednesday long affair, and eventually we're going to have flooding down to the south as well. Don't have to worry about the wintry precip. We're going to stay in the 30s and 40s, well above the freezing point. So that's our one positive aspect of the middle of the week.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, recognizing World Stroke Day.
Nearly 800,000 Americans suffer from strokes every year. I'm Elise Preston with a warning from doctors who say many strokes can be avoided.
Plus, we wrap up Croctober this year with a recipe for cream cheese chicken chili. And you won't want to miss this one. And Harley-Davidson's out with a new bike, and it's probably not the kind you're thinking of. We'll explain. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. In Money Watch this morning, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to weigh heavily on Wall Street. Fears about the worldwide spread of the coronavirus pushed the markets downward on Tuesday, tech stocks being the exception. The Dow fell 222 points, the Nasdaq rose 72, the S&P 500 dropped 10. After the bell rang yesterday, Microsoft reported its latest quarterly results. The company beat expectations with over $37 billion in revenue. Microsoft's growth was powered by its video game and cloud divisions. It said demand for its online services has soared since the pandemic began. The shares of Crocs, Inc. are soaring after it reported a stellar third quarter. In the 3 months ending September 30th, the company sold nearly 17 million pairs of its distinctive clogs and other footwear. Crocs is looking to increase that number. It announced that its shoes will soon be available in Foot Locker and Finish Line stores. Harley-Davidson is trying to electrify its appeal to younger riders by starting an e-bike brand. On Tuesday, the iconic motorcycle company revealed the first images of its future electric bike called Serial One. The bike will have a mid-mounted engine that kicks in when the rider turns the pedals. Its top speed will be 28 miles an hour or less because of e-bike regulations. Harley has been having a rough ride in its motorcycle branch, whose profits declined for 6 years. The new e-bike will be on the market in the first half of next year. It does look cool. Well, Facebook is revving up its new gaming service with free games. The social media site launched Facebook Gaming on Monday. The company says this is not a separate service to Facebook. It's meant to be played the same way you play games currently on the website or app. But this cloud service lets users play streaming games, similar to those on gaming consoles or PCs. Right now, the service is only focused on games that are free to play. That's it from Money Watch. Here's Michael with our Something to Talk About.
Yeah, I'm going to get there in a second. I want to do this real fast for everybody. I got updated precipitation accumulation numbers. We were talking about those flood watches right there. And so we were talking 2 to 3. There's a good chance we see as much as 4 they're down in the southern counties. So yeah, like I said, I just got that model updated and I wanted to pass that along real fast. Anyway, there's something to talk about this morning. Back to Tanya's segue to me. Talking about the first time you voted and if your candidate won. Tony Hodge Sr., I tell you what, 1976 has been the popular number so far. But now, right above it, is I see Lana Floyd Royer, picture of President Reagan. Turning 18, Lana says, in 1980, proudly voted for Ronald Reagan, wishing we could have cloned him. He was brilliant. And Rocky Cunningham, Reagan, in 84. Even though I joined the Navy in 80, I was only 17 till 81. And Mike Gallimberto, look at it, turned 18 in 84, voted for Ronald Reagan. So proud to vote for a great man. And there's another picture of Ronald Reagan from Chris Westervelt, 1980. And then Sherry Schrader, 1992. Sherry says she voted for President Bush. Tell you what, this has been really interesting this morning as far as our numbers. KOAM Instapoll. You go to KOAMnewsnow.com. KOAM.com/vote. And right now we've got 35%, ranging from that 72 to 1980 year. And like I said, 76 probably been the most popular number there on Facebook. Now, second is going to be that 84 to 92. And that's what we saw just kick in there as we read through our comments. This has been great engagement. I appreciate everybody taking part. Go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Be back with Healthwatch right after this.
All right, it is time to lift the lid on our final Croctober recipe. Michael is having a blast.
No, I want to thank Amber Kelly out in Iola for this wonderful recipe.
Yes, she submitted a recipe for crock-pot cream cheese chicken chili.
Yeah.
And we are making this one because you guys voted on it. It was so much fun on Monday.
Do we need to remind social distance of why we're doing this?
Yes, because we
practice. I just wanted to point that out. That's why I'm not over in the kitchen, the test kitchen.
Despite the
By
fact
the way,
that
you need to clean up before Howard gets in.
Yeah.
I'll clean up. I'll tell you what, after the show, I'll take care of it. I know how he is. I'll get it all cleaned up. Don't worry about it.
Okay, let's run through the ingredients and how we make this. You start off this recipe with 2 chicken breasts.
No, you start off the recipe with a crock pot.
Yes, with a crock pot. Put 2 chicken breasts. She says you can use them frozen. Ours actually weren't, but that's okay. Put those in the pot. Put a can of Rotel in there, a can of Mexican corn. Don't drain it. We could not find any Mexican corn, so we used regular corn. I'm sorry.
Oh,
yes, I know.
Ooh, I could have got you some.
A can of black beans. I'm not the one that went shopping. Thank you, Gus, for doing that.
Yeah, Gus,
Make
I
sure you
appreciate
drain those black beans. Put a package of ranch dressing in there, or 2, if you had small packages like we did. A tablespoon of cumin, a tablespoon of chili powder, a tablespoon of onion powder.
You can't go wrong with ground cumin.
Yes, and then a package of cream cheese. You'll notice that I did not cut up the chicken. I did not pre-cook the chicken.
No.
I did not cut up that cream cheese. You put that.
So my question is, chicken. I get nervous cooking chicken myself because I'm afraid I'm going to So my question is, how long do I cook it in the crock pot?
Well, you can either cook it on low for 6 to 8 hours or on high for 3 to 4 hours.
That's not bad at all.
No, not at all. So you have a couple of options. Ours was cooked on low all night long. When I opened it up and started shredding it, like all I used was this spoon and a fork, and I was just like,
it just fell apart?
It just fell apart.
That's too cool.
And that cream cheese block just melted away into everything.
Yeah, I noticed you didn't even cut that up. You just dumped it in there,
I dumped it in there, and I was like, that's weird. I don't have to chop it up. Nope, definitely did not. So it's time to lift the lid on our recipe.
Pop that top.
Yes, I'm popping the top. And here we go. Oh, that looks
It smells
amazing.
wonderful.
Look at that.
How
beautiful is that? Amazing.
What's up, Trojan?
Go ahead and that was Jesse Irwin that just walked in the. Oh, that is amazing.
Jesse just walked in. First thing out of his mouth is it smells
good.
good.
I've had this turned off for probably the last 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes, the juice has really thickened up quite a bit.
That's so
very
cool
runny,
that chicken just shreds like that.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to eat it with a spoon, but nope, definitely not. It's still a little too hot to put in my mouth right now, but that looks amazing. That looks yummy. It smells great. Thank you so much for sending this in, Amber.
Yeah, Amber, I want to thank you very much. Yeah, that's a wonderful recipe right there. Crock pot cream cheese chicken chili.
Yes, and you can find this recipe and watch this segment on our website later this morning, so you can jot it down if you missed it.
All right, I want to thank everybody for their engagement here during Croctober. It's something that we greatly appreciate. It's something that Tanya really does look forward to. This is the excitement that she has when she does this. People, it is genuine. I do want to let you know that. We're going to come back. Like I said, thank you all for participating, and you can find all those recipes, like Tanya said, KOAMnewsnow.com. I lied earlier. Now we're going to come back and do Healthwatch. Next.
Good morning. Topping Healthwatch this morning. Tomorrow is World Stroke Day, a day to raise awareness for a leading cause of death and disability around the world. About 800,000 people have strokes in the U.S. every year, but many can be prevented. Elise Preston has one mother's story of how suffering a stroke changed her life.
people don't realize that it can happen to you.
That's why 42-year-old Kelly Fuchek tells her story.
I woke up one morning and I noticed some issues with balance.
She also had vision problems and neck pain. She was having a stroke at just 32 years old.
I waited 2 days before I sought any medical attention, which is just ridiculous. And even every time I talk about it, I get kind of, emotional just because I could not be here now.
While stroke is more common in older people, rates are increasing in younger adults. Dr. Mitchell Elkin, president of the American Heart Association, says we don't fully understand why.
It may reflect changes in behavior, like different diet and lack of exercise, a sedentary lifestyle, increases in obesity and diabetes that can lead to vascular disease and stroke. So we need to figure out why it's happening and prevent it.
Managing those risk factors is key. Controlling high blood pressure is one of the most important things to reduce risk. And know the warning signs. Think fast, face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, and time to call 911.
We do have treatments for people who are having strokes, but they need to be given as quickly as possible. And the longer people wait, the more brain damage they will suffer after a stroke.
After her stroke, Kelly stopped smoking, lost more than 50 pounds, and started eating right and exercising.
It was very difficult to recover from in the emotional aspect as well as the physical, but I was very blessed with being able to do some rehab and really I have no deficits.
She's also teaching her children to live a healthy life. Elise Preston, CBS News.
Well, many of the risk factors for stroke, such as uncontrolled high blood pressure, smoking, and obesity, also increase the risk of severe illness from COVID-19. So it's critical to manage those risks. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
We're about to get started here in northeast Oklahoma. The rain headed our way. We've had some limited lightning strikes with it, not widespread by any means. But also, too, we're starting to see a little bit of that green turn into yellow and orange. That's why we're going to anticipate anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain in the southern portion of the 4 states, and that leads to flood watches abound. Now, the positive aspect of our potential flooding is at least we're going to stay above the freezing mark today, so we don't have to worry about any of it turning over into that wintry mix that we had on Monday and Tuesday. But know those low-lying areas and anticipate them being flooded, especially on your way home.
How Joplin School District CARES Act funds will provide new Chromebooks for a school that's not in the district. Plus, why the state of Missouri is making it easier for substitute teachers to get certified, and a look at the impact social media is having on the election.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is 6:30. I'm Jesse Irwin. Coming up this half hour, violent protests break out in Philadelphia following a fatal police shooting. We've got the details on that. And something to talk about this morning, we're asking what the first election you voted in was. You can also go to the KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. It's the KOAM Instapoll, and that's our question this morning. So go and vote. First, let's check in with Michael for a forecast.
You good? You got a big smile on your face there at the start. It's almost like somebody tried to crack a joke right before you started.
Well, that's exactly what happened.
All right, Jesse, we are game on here in a matter of minutes as the rain moves in from the south. First going to make its way through northeast Oklahoma. Everything's going to move from directly south up to the north. Now, we're not going to have to worry about any of the frozen precipitation that we've had past couple of days. It stays off to the west. But to give you an idea of what's down to the south, it's going to be an elongated period of time. It's going to last all Wednesday, easily into Thursday as well, and that's why we have flood watches abound. We're looking at anywhere from 2.5 to 4 inches in our southern counties. As far as our temperatures go right now, for the Freeman Health System Sky Camera in Joplin, already 38 degrees. So when we look at it, let's take Fort Scott and Nevada, sitting at 32, 33, Pittsburgh still at 33. But by the time the rain gets there, we're going to be fine as far as what we're looking at temperature-wise. So we won't see any of it flip over into freezing rain or drizzle or anything like that. For the bus stop forecast, like I said, even if you live central or north, if they don't need the umbrella going to school, they're going to need it coming home, because this rain is going to persist all through the afternoon hours and temperatures eventually making it into the 40s. So that'll be a nice little change. But like I said, the biggest thing is, especially on that ride home, even when you got to go if you're picking up the kids this afternoon and you got to take a back road, a county road, a country road, no, there's a good possibility they're already going to be flooded at that time.
Have you ever watched The Bachelor or The Bachelorette?
I do not.
So I don't watch it either, but once a year.
Why do I not believe you with this sentiment of that question?
So yeah, once a year I'm put to the test I'm asked to watch it.
Right.
Last night, tried to give it a shot. I can't do it, man. I can't do it. This isn't a knock on this is literally just, I can't get into it.
That's why I only watch Big Brother, because it airs right here on KOAM, CBS.
No, I mean, in all honesty, I feel like there is a big part of it where it's just, there's 30 guys. This guy, Zach J, the Bachelorette calls him Zach J. It's like, if you're being called your first name and first initial, you're probably not getting that close with
That's
the
a good point.
Bachelorette.
That's why I just go by Slip. It's just easier that way.
Slip Diesel.
At Slip Diesel on Twitter. I retweet baseball stuff.
Thank you, Michael. The Joplin School Board met last night to discuss a number of things, including purchasing 80 Chromebooks using CARES money. But those Chromebooks are not for the Joplin district itself. They're for College Heights Christian School. That's because of a requirement involving federal regulations to provide services to students and teachers in non-public schools. The Joplin School District serves as the primary point for funding, and then the district must provide a certain percentage to the private schools in the district's limits.
And so with the CARES Act money being a federal money, Joplin got a set amount, and then each one of those public school or private schools that are within their attendance area got a certain amount of money.
Well, officials say there are stipulations for the funding, especially if it goes to a religious school. In some cases, whatever is being provided through Joplin must be in a room that has no religious icons or decor of any kind. The Missouri Department of Education is trying to get more people to become substitute teachers as the state and nation face a shortage. KOAM's Zach Dodge has details and what local districts think of the state's efforts.
Dana Newman originally started substitute teaching to make some extra money, but it quickly turned into so much more.
It's enjoyable. You actually get to put your feet in a classroom, so you know what your own child is going through.
Now, 20 years later, she still has the same passion for her students.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Pretty much every school in the area could use more people like Newman as the nation tries to work through a substitute teacher shortage, an issue that's been made worse by the pandemic.
A lot of our substitutes are often retired and older folks. There have been some of those that either don't substitute as much or as regular, or some that are just kind of sitting on the sidelines to try to see how everything plays out.
In Joplin, they've been reimbursing part of the cost to become a substitute and pushing to hire more of them as quickly as possible. After all that work, they're at around a 90% fill rate.
I don't want to be anything under 90, and probably 95 to 100 would be ideal.
Webb City is also having issues.
We might have 70, 80 people on our sub list, but only maybe perhaps 15 to 20 of them are actually active.
In August, the state lowered the requirement to become a substitute teacher so the residents with a high school diploma could get certified after taking a 20-hour course. And now the state is reimbursing new subs for the cost of that certification process, saving them around $300.
Felt like that was an obstacle to some folks that would want to sub for us, so that's huge.
And Rossetti appreciates the effort the state is putting into solving the problem, but says the jury's out on how effective it will actually be.
If we were trying to incentivize some of our people that are on our list for them to be able to come in, that might be a little bit more effective.
For Missouri to step up and say, hey, yes, there is a shortage, now is when the time we need to back our teachers and our education.
In Joplin and Webb City, Zach Dodge, KOAM News.
The reimbursement program ends on November 4th. There's no action required for substitute teachers to be reimbursed for certification fees. Well, Election Day is a week away, and this year social media has played a major role in campaigning in the effort to influence people to vote. Social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram have allowed those running for office to more conveniently reach a larger audience. For instance, President Trump tweets to his 87 million followers more than 20 times a day. Locally, social media has helped organizations like the Southwest Missouri Republicans and Democrats with campaigning. It's allowed them to spend less on advertising and campaign safely during COVID-19. Krista Stark with the Southwest Missouri Democrats says social media is used more for reminding people, especially the younger generation, to vote, rather than swaying who they vote for.
Zoomers are not a highly persuadable group. They already have their mind made up one way or another. Just reminding them to vote would be the issue.
You can find more on this story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. We often talk about how our coworkers here are really our family, but it's not just localized to our newsroom. Broadcast journalists across the world are one big family, and when a family member is hurting or needs help, folks step up, and that's the thought behind this. Meteorologists across the country wore red yesterday. They chose to do this to show support for Doug's son, Christian, who's battling cancer. A number of them posting these photos on Twitter with encouraging messages and a link to donate to help with expenses. On behalf of Doug and his family and everyone here, of course, at KOAM, we say thank you, guys. Well, that's a look at our top news stories. Coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News, the latest from the campaign trail.
President Trump and Joe Biden are taking vastly different approaches in the last days of their campaigns. I'm Nancy Chen in Washington as the candidates near the final stretch.
Plus, what was the first election you voted in? We let you weigh in on our Something to Talk About, but first, the time is 6:37.
Yeah, Jesse, and I know you said a thank you from all of us here at KOAM, which I want to reiterate, but also too a huge thank you from everybody that sits behind the desk at the Skywatch Weather Center as well, in your support of Doug and Christian and the entire family as they go through that, and they have been amazing. Here comes the rain working up from the south. Everything works south to north today, and just starting to get into our highlighted counties. Remember, we've got flood watches. We will be in the 40s this afternoon, so we don't have to worry about wintry precip. Back with Nationwatch next.
Topping Nationwatch this morning, police and protesters faced off again in Philadelphia for a second night following the fatal police shooting of a black man who walked toward them with a knife. The family of Walter Wallace Jr. says he was having a mental health crisis and the shooting was unjustified. Philadelphia police have opened investigation. With just a few days left before Election Day, President Trump and Joe Biden are talking vastly different approaches as they deliver their closing arguments to voters. Both sides have plenty of support as November 3rd inches closer. Nancy Chen reports from Washington, D.C.
With less than a week left in the race for the White House, most polls are favoring Democratic nominee Joe Biden. But President Trump is confident he'll come out on top.
We're going to win Nebraska. And we're going to win 4 more years in the great White House, that beautiful, beautiful White House.
On Tuesday, the president held rallies in 3 states that he carried in 2016, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Michigan. In a speech in Lansing, the president suggested his opponents are using the coronavirus pandemic to make him look bad.
It's COVID. You can't watch anything else. On November 4th, you won't be hearing so much about it.
Biden campaigned in Georgia, a state that hasn't backed a Democrat for president since 1992.
If you give me the honor of serving as your president, clear the decks for action, for we will act.
Surrogates for both candidates are also crisscrossing the country in this final stretch.
Donald loves helping people, and he loves seeing those around him and his country succeed.
What's his closing argument? That people are too focused on COVID. He said this at one of his rallies. COVID, he's complaining. He's jealous of COVID's media coverage.
According to the U.S. Elections Project, more than 71 million people have already voted. That's more than half the total cast during the entire 2016 election. Nancy Chen, CBS News, Washington.
Last night, Monday night, the Supreme Court ruled that Wisconsin cannot count mailed-in votes received after Election Day. Now, new Justice Amy Coney Barrett was not involved in the 5-3 ruling, which said that courts should defer to state election laws. That's a look at today's top national stories. Let's check back in with Michael for our Morning Talker.
All right, Jesse, speaking of the election, asking you on the Insta poll and on Facebook, first election you voted in, and if your candidate won. And we'll pick back up with Daniel 6 First vote, 1988, G.H.W. Bush. Chris Osgood Miller. I too voted in 1976. That seems to be the popular one this morning. Proudly voted for President Carter. This is kind of cool right here because we were talking about young voters. Bobby Pulliam. This one will be the first time I've ever voted at 33 years old. Bobby, I think that's awesome. I appreciate your engagement this morning as well. Earl Haas, 1972, voted for President Nixon. And then Ken Anders, 80 and 84, I was in the Army, greatest president of my lifetime, President Reagan. And remember, we keep the KOAM Insta poll open all morning long. You go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. 37% of you saying it was between 1972 and 1980, followed by 24% from 1984 to 1992. Once again, you go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. And I just think the engagement this morning has been wonderful. Greatly appreciate it. We're going to come back, celebrate birthdays and anniversaries right after this.
We take this time to honor today's four-state hero. Sergeant Richard Kingery served in the United States Army from 1949 to 1952. He fought in Korea and received both the Silver Star and the Bronze Star. His hometown, Joplin, Missouri. We're proud to salute Richard Kingery, a four-state hero.
We're going to get this birthday list started off with a smiling Amory Bowman as she celebrates her 4th birthday. What a wonderful picture right there. And Amory, I want you to know that this happy birthday wish comes from Mom, Dad, Mia, and Bella. And I want you to know too, they all love you very, very much.
What a great photo. Well, it's her 4th birthday, and it's Milo's 5th
What's up, Milo?
birthday. Milo, happy birthday, turning 5 in Pittsburgh.
That's good family right there. I like that. Blaine Buchanan, he's celebrating the big number 7 right there. A patriotic photo. I love that, Blaine. He is celebrating his 7th in Jasper.
Also turning 7, Mac, the twins.
The Coombses.
It's Kyler. Kyler, happy birthday, turning 7 years old. And Michael, it's not just Kyler's birthday, right?
Yep. You don't get one without the other in that family.
There it is. Coombs brothers, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Coombs. Logan Benton Robbins is celebrating his 11th birthday. That's a good looking picture right there. Rough and tumble. And Logan Benton, I want you to know that this specific birthday wish comes with some love from your mom.
And Adeline Matthew turning 12. This sent in from Adeline's grandparents.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Adeline. Enjoy 12 years old. It was a good year for me personally, so I hope it's a good one for you as well.
Mason Quinn Houshel celebrating his 15th birthday. Go get him, Mason. Have a great day, kiddo. I shouldn't call a 15-year-old kiddo. I should say teenager. Yes. No longer kiddo.
Well, you know who can vote now.
That's a good point.
Peyton.
That's a good point, man.
Peyton, I hope you registered to vote, but more importantly, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful 18th birthday in Baxter Springs.
Yeah, we were talking about that 26th Amendment. Check out that leather jacket.
Yeah,
that's good looking, man.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. All right, speaking of twins, we've got Grant Robinson, who celebrates his 25th in Neodesha with his little one right there. Happy birthday to Grant. And speaking of little ones, look who's in Hunter's arms. Hunter Robinson, Grant's twin brother, as he celebrates his 25th in Thayer. So happy birthday to the Robinson twins.
I think the Robinson twins are they in Thayer or are they in Neodesha?
Well, we got one in Neodesha and one in Thayer.
Oh, wow. All right. Well,
I mean, they're 25. They got lives.
Well, you know, it's also Tristan Thornton's birthday in Thayer. And
right.
Tristan's also turning 25. So happy birthday. Is that an Indians hat? Does that look like a Cleveland Indians hat?
No, that's the St. Louis Cardinals hat. I can see the STL on it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, Tristan, happy 25th birthday,
How did you devise Cleveland?
I don't know. I thought it was a bluish hat.
I got new contacts yesterday, so that's why. Like my vision's on point.
Shane hooked you up?
What up, Tristan? I got your hat. I can see it. A happy birthday to Larry Palmer. Now, it's a little bit belated, but Larry's surrounded by man's best friends as he celebrates his, it says 73, I've got 76. Larry, it doesn't matter. I just want you to have a marvelous birthday week, sir.
Turning 82 in Carthage is Arlene Weber. Arlene, happy birthday. And look at what you have in your arms.
How great is that? That's tremendous.
Well, Happy birthday, Arlene.
This is a good one right here. Our good friend Ann Emerson. We're gonna do a little throwback pick on Ann.
I like it.
That's cool. Happy birthday, Miss Ann, out in Chanute. Caitlin Simpson, celebrating her 14th birthday in Columbus. Caitlin, a very happy birthday to you. Scott Gideon, number 56 in Afton. And this is pretty interesting because Scott Gideon happens to live right next door to Mimi Vihi. And get this, Scott celebrates his birthday in Afton, and Mimi, she celebrates her 18th on the same day. So if you're down in Afton, we may have a block party celebration going on for Scott and Mimi. Happy birthday, happy anniversary to all. Now, here's Jesse Irwin with a very important birthday announcement.
Well, if you didn't know, you can be part of the KOAM Birthday Club. Just go to our website and sign up. You get special deals from local businesses. Head to KOAMnewsnow.com and just sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today. Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Authorities in Jasper County declare a mistrial in the case of a Joplin man charged with multiple child sex crimes because the suspect is sick. The trial of Daniel Franklin was supposed to start Monday, but Franklin became sick and was taken to the hospital. His charges include multiple counts of statutory sodomy, statutory rape, and unlawful use of a weapon. His trial has been rescheduled for later this year. The Joplin School Board met last night to discuss a number of things, including purchasing 80 Chromebooks using CARES money. But those Chromebooks are not for the Joplin district itself. They're for College Heights Christian School. That's because of a requirement involving federal regulations to provide services to students and teachers in non-public schools. The Joplin School District serves as the primary point for funding, and then the district must provide a certain percentage to the private schools in the district's limits. Missouri is trying to increase the number of substitute teachers by making it easier for them to get certified. In August, the state lowered the requirement so that residents with a high school diploma can get certified after going through a 20-hour course. The state's also now using CARES Act funds to reimburse the cost of the course, certification, and background check. The LA Dodgers won the World Series on a strikeout. Look at that. They defeated the Tampa Bay Rays 3-1 in Game 6 of the World Series Tuesday night. The Dodgers appeared in 3 World Series in the last 4 years, but their last win had been in 1988. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you walk out the door.
Don't second guess Kevin Cash. If you watched baseball all year, you knew he was going to pull Snell. Whether you think it was the right decision or wrong decision. I don't think it came as a surprise. It didn't come as a surprise to Blake Snell. He knew he was out. Here comes the rain. I'm sorry, what?
Would you have pulled Snell?
No, I love Blake Snell. No, I got a huge baseball crush on Blake Snell. I absolutely love him. I wouldn't have. I would never pull Blake Snell. He could be down 10 runs. I'd be like, I want to watch Blake Snell.
Keep him in.
All right, Jesse, here comes the rain in from the south. So we're on there in northeast Oklahoma, and everything's going to move from south to north. Remember, we do have flood watches all the way until Thursday evening. Look at that expiration time. So we know it's going to be a soaker today, anywhere from 2.5 to 4 inches down to the south, progressively getting a little bit lighter as you move to the north, but at the same point in time, even in our far northern counties, we're probably going to see an excess of an inch by the time Thursday is all said and done. Temperatures up into the high 40s later on this afternoon. We do not have any threat of this flipping over to any wintry precip, so let's consider ourselves lucky in that aspect, but roads will be flooded for your evening commute.
All right, well, coming up today at noon, Mr. Food's recipe for Greek potatoes.
Morning news continuing on KOAM, CBS Morning News. That's coming up next.
Yeah, but you can switch on over to Fox 14 with us, where your only local morning news continues. And this morning, we are going to be breaking down the different laws in states that allow you time during work to vote. We'll have that plus Giant Pac-Man. And
we're going to tie that into our KOAM News Now Facebook and Insta poll. Wraps it up for this edition. I want you to have a great, safe Wednesday. We'll do this all again tomorrow morning.
And we'll see you again today at noon after the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14.